What's up, everybody? This is Darren Butt, Pro Audio and Lighting Specialist with Yorkville Sound, here at 550 Granite Court in Pickering, Ontario, Canada, to present to you Lighting 101 from Yorkville Sound. So first of all, before anything, I want to say thank you for tuning in. A big thank you also to Long McQuade for throwing on all of these live streams, free of charge, multiple times a week. There's been education in terms of pro audio, recording, guitar related, bass related. Absolutely some great clinics and some great clinicians. But one thing they haven't talked about, or no one's really talked about, is lighting. One of the more scarier sides of the live entertainment side, just because there's so much that can get involved with lighting. Whether it's DMX, whether you're talking about DMX cables versus XLR cables, creating scenes, effect lights versus lasers, LED versus incandescent. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different lights, different configurations. We're going to run through some lights in the Yorkville/Orion catalog. That's one of our brands as well, Orion Lighting. We're going to be taking care of parkans. Going to be taking care of lasers as well and showing you what they can do, and also effect lights. We're going to show you what these can do by themselves, right out of the box, without any additional consoles, processing, anything needed. We're also going to show you how they work in conjunction with one another in multiples. And then we're also going to show you how to hook up these lights via DMX. So we'll get into it right away. Again, I want to thank Long McQuade, thank Yorkville for having me as well. Like I said, again, my name is Darren Butt, and all these videos will be saved as we're doing live right now. They will be saved on the Long McQuade channel, so by all means, if you can't catch all of it, this will be saved. On top of that, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat anytime, the message anytime. May not be able to get to all of the questions, but I'll do as best I can on the fly, and I will definitely answer all the questions after the presentation is done. So just give me a couple days or so to catch up, and would love to get back to all of you. So we're going to get into it with Lighting 101. Basically, this presentation, if we look at the slides here, what we see is we're going to take care of everything from, not that we're condoning events like this right now during this time. We know things are different provincially, different country to country. Right now, with COVID-19 going on, we want to make sure that everybody stays safe, stays home when needed. But this is also going to not only up your lighting skills for your next events, hopefully that happen in the near future when all this is behind us, and then also to maybe gain a bit of knowledge as to what you could have done in the past, maybe when you were using lighting or when you could have implemented lighting. So like I said, we're going to take care of a lot of different topics, whether you're playing in front of a couple hundred people at a restaurant with a little bit of lighting, whether you're doing a rock show or a house of worship with multiple lights, moving heads, really big concerts up to tens of thousands of people, and kind of the most important thing that's going on right now, which is live streaming. So whether you're a professional or bedroom DJ, same with the solo dual performers that are playing maybe acoustic guitar, maybe playing piano at home. This is going to be all for you. So, whether you're performing by yourself and you want to up the game and you want to make that live stream a little bit more ambient, you want to have a little bit more show, a little bit more flash, a little bit more finesse, that's definitely what lighting can help and can provide. It definitely helps with setting the mood and setting the tone. We're going to take all of these complicated things that you see in front of here. No, we're not going to be dissecting every single thing here. When I tell DMX to people who are unsure of DMX, this is kind of what goes through their brain and all the different binary codes and addressing and cabling. And when we break it down, DMX is actually a lot easier than we think. We'll get into that about midway into the presentation. We're going to start it pretty basic, so we're not going to be covering a whole plethora of moving heads and multiple lasers and effect lights. We're going to stick to some core product so that if you can get DMX working with a parkan, if you can get DMX working with one of our lasers, if you can get DMX working with one of our effect lights, basically you could take any other manufacturer or supplier and then implement their lights as well, whether it be single or in multiples, to be able to create some really cool lighting shows. And the thing with lighting is it's quite subjective. If the rider for the event or if the artist prefers not to have red as an example, sure, you can get rid of red and forego that. But it's pretty subjective. So, for most concerts, most things going on, live streams, like as long as the lights look pretty decent, maybe move into the music, They've got some cool functionality. You could pretty much just set them and forget them. So we're going to go and we're going to start with the basics in lighting. We're going to start with our very first product. We're going to go product by product. So we'll start with the very first one that we have in front of me here. If you want to switch the screen, please, Ray. Yeah, let's do full screen here. Yeah, perfect, yeah. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we're going to start with our very first light here. This is our OR Can 2 by Orion. It's a power can. LED as well. The big advantages to LED versus incandescent is the fact that these are very, very low power consumption. I say extremely low. You could probably plug in about 8 of these on one 15 amp circuit and not blow a circuit, where traditionally anything with halogen light bulbs will require typically its own circuit because there's so much power. Incandescent and halogen lights have their advantages. They're generally pretty inexpensive compared to LED, but LED technology is just far surpassed in the last couple of years halogen, and just so much easier to use and so much more also affordable as well, especially when it comes to effect lights. So I've got one light here. It's our OR Can 2, like I said. What we're going to do is we're going to show you what you can do with this light all by itself via the back panel here. So what we'll do is I'll go through all the functionality of what you can do. So I'm actually just going to, just give me a second here. I'm going to hit the lights so you can kind of see a little bit better. Yeah, full screen's fine there. Yep, perfect. Okay. So right now we have it set to D001, which we'll get into in a second. This is actually addressing the DMX channel. Typically with any DMX light, you'll always want to start with number 1. It just makes sense that you start from 1. You can move your way up from there. But let's go through, aside from DMX, what this light can do and provide by itself. So we hit the menu button here. We can see that we've got a light that's changing color. You see it blue into purple. So CC is basic color change. And on the unit itself, as you can see here, there's a menu section with a low contrast display. So with the menu, you can actually toggle up and down. So if you're in this one mode, CC50, this actually goes from 0 to 99. So what that means is right now we're smack dab in the middle. So this is changing the color every, let's say, almost a second, right? So if you want to increase this or decrease this, you can actually do this right on the light itself. So if you look down here, we can actually bring it up and down. So I'm going to bring it all the way down. And as you can see, as I bring it down, the light itself will stop turning so fast. So the color change is quite a bit slower. And if we do the opposite, we crank it up to 99, you'll see that obviously the intensity has raised. This is a really cool thing if you're not doing lighting, if you're maybe DJing, if you're a performer and you're playing on stage but you want some cool lighting. You don't need a DMX controller with this. So if you're happy with this setting the way it is over and over again, just automatically changing, all you really have to do is find the setting you want and hit the enter button. And every time that you disconnect the light in terms of power it back on, it will remember CC11 or whatever mode that you have it in. So really easy to use, simple, but has a great effect to it. Cool color change. This will work perfect maybe in a wedding situation, again for live streaming as well. This is maybe a little bit fast for a slow fade, but we'll get into the different things that you can do. But yeah, right on the spot what you can do with the light right out of the box. We're going to move now to CP99, that stands for Color Pulse 99. Right now we have it on 99. As you can see, the light is pulsating pretty quick. If you want to slow that down entirely, we can go down to CP00 and you can tell it will change the color pulse very, very slowly. Probably too slow for this video and I don't want to bore all you. So let's raise it just a little bit so we get a little bit of action. As we're raising it here, you'll see that the color pulse will start to increase. So let's just say you're happy with that. That's kind of a slow color fade as an example, a slow color pulse. You're happy with this. Again, you can hit the enter button and everything will be saved. We also have DE99. Forget the DE. This is just it's an acronym, not for anything particularly, but this is fade mode. Again, it's really important with all lights and all controllers, not just ours, but every light, to really look at the manual. At the end of the day, it's a real cliche for a manufacturer to say read the manual, but at the end of the day, it's extremely important because from light to light, so many things differ. Whether that's the back panel, whether that's the DMX channels, which we'll get into in a little bit. It's always good to revert back to the manual so then you can see exactly what these modes represent to get the best usage of your light. And really that's fair for almost every single product that's out there, really. So, okay, so next we're going to move on to BEBE. Again, no particular meaning for BEBE, but this is actually sound active mode. So I wouldn't do this with your lights, although you can do this with your can too. It will definitely survive, no problem. You can see that it's changing color, which would be to the beat of the music. And this is a really cool function. Built into the microphone, to the system is a microphone. So there's a non-adjustable mic that's built in here that actually picks up the bass vibrations, mid frequencies, and the high frequencies from any light itself and from any music itself. So a really cool mode where you can just put the light in sound active mode, set it and forget it, particularly if you're a DJ or playing music. It creates a really interesting performance when you could set this to the sound active mode, it move around all night, and really you can impress your clients into thinking that you're using DMX when really the light's just doing its own thing, reacting to the music. This would be a great mode if you're DJing and you just simply don't have your hands free. Let's say you're doing DJing, you're also trying to take care of like a photo booth, you're doing maybe pictures of stuff as well, you're maybe the MC, you got a lot going on, so you can't necessarily just sit there and play with the DMX console all night. This is a great mode and a great way to be able to use the light. Cool, so I had a question from Chris Lowry. His question is, are these power in / out to link? Great question. I'm gonna move this light here because it's probably pretty annoying for everybody. It's off to the side. Great question. These particular lights that we have here, none of the Orion lights have any power in and power through. We keep these very simplistic. Judging by our sales by rentals, a lot of these get rented and sold in 1s and 2s, where the power link isn't as necessary, where you're running, let's say, 6 to 10 to 12 on truss. Our core audience is doing kind of what I'm doing right now, which is just a lot of set it and forget it, maybe not using multiple lights as well. Great question though. There are a lot of lights out there that do feature power in, so you can power the light itself, and then there's an output that can actually power another light. Obviously there's some limitations. You can't just plug in lights over and over and over and over and over again and hope that you're not going to trip a circuit. But really handy, especially when using LED lights, because of the fact that it's so low power consumption that generally you can get away with running about 3 or 4 together. So really good question. The Orion products and the Yorkville products don't feature this, but there are a lot of other manufacturers out there who have this, especially when it comes to more expensive lighting. Cool. So we'll go to the back here again. Okay, so in the last mode we were in was the sound active mode. So as you can see, it changes color to the hit of my hand to the light, which would be music, obviously. So this is all fine and dandy. We've gone through all of the modes that this one light can do. With actually just finishing up here, we've got actually 3 more options. There's R, which represents red. So you can actually, on the light itself, like let's say you didn't want any effects. Let's say this is maybe a ceremony, as an example. And the bride or the groom wants a particular color. Let's just say, as an example, they want red. You actually have on the light the full ability to turn up red and how much or how little of red you want. So if you have, let's say, red full intensity, someone thinks maybe it's a little too red, I want to add just a little bit of green, you can actually go ahead and add green incrementally. You'll see that there's 0. You'll see all the way up to 255. So 0 would represent no green at all, and 255 would basically mean the most amount of green possible, so the fullest intensity. And then you have the option of everything in between as well. So we're not going to go through all the modes, but it gives you an idea. So green, let's keep it 0. Let's say you want a little bit of blue as well. You actually have the option to select from blue. So this is actually what we call an RGB light. So this has red LEDs, green LEDs, and blue LEDs. And it's not necessarily like there's just one master control that just turns them up all independently. You actually have the option on the light to choose how much blue, how much green, how much red you want for the most amount of versatility. This would be great if you're not looking to use DMX. You want to keep something one color all night, whether again that's you're doing a live stream, whether it's a performance and you have other effect lights, but you just want these lights to perhaps spot the singer, spot the musician. So that's basically all the modes that are built in here, and we're back to DMX 1. All fine and dandy when we've got one light. It's all good. It reacts great, but let's just say that you're looking for perhaps a little bit more intensity. Perhaps you're looking for a little bit more coverage and output. what you can do at this point, if one light wasn't enough for you, what you can actually do is plug out of this light, and you can plug in a second light, which I have here. So the beauty of these Orion lights, and it's not just proprietary to this specific light, there are other lights in our catalog that do this as soon as you hook up two lights that are identical together. So right now I have this on color change 04, so it's not a very fast color change. It's actually quite a bit faster than this. So this light itself that I have my hand on is doing the color change in front of us. And then obviously we have the light here that's doing the exact same thing. And we can actually scroll through all the modes. And no matter what mode we're on, this is going to react accordingly. So the beauty of a system like this is, like I was showing you, we've got all the different things that you can do with standalone mode. If you want to show Ray just the main presentation screen here, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So basically that's standalone mode. As you can see, we've got all the different functionalities. So as you can see, the D represented the DMX channel, and this is taken straight from the manual. Again, why if you were to try to dive deep into this without a manual, it would be a lot of guessing in terms of what function did what. I'm going to just turn this from DE all the way to DMX, so we have no light. Perfect. So as you can see here, we've got all this different functions that this does in standalone mode. We also have all of the functions that it can do when in master-slave mode. So what this means is the first unit that I have here, you don't have to change the slide rate, it's perfectly fine. But what you see here, the first unit itself, the one I labeled and was playing with the screen, that is the master light. So basically anything that light does or I assign it to do, anything downstream from that, so anything that comes out of that with a DMX cord into the next light, we'll copy it. Obviously, you could keep going and going and going with this. There's really the only limitation you have with DMX is, going to be power itself, power consumption. Again, these lights are very low power consumption. One of these eats maximum about an amp and a half of power max. So you can actually have quite a few of these linked together on one AC outlet, which is very handy. But the sky's the limit with these lights. There's no reason why you couldn't do 3, you couldn't do 4 lights. And really that's just to cover the space. So if you're perfectly happy with the light fading all night into a colored pulse all night, sound active all night, there really is no need for a DMX controller, any other external control. Again, this would be somebody who already has their hands busy. You don't have your hands free to be able to do lighting all night. Again, perhaps maybe you're doing a DJ and doing other different things. Maybe you're a performer and playing guitar. You can't do lighting at the same time, but you do want to create a little bit of ambiance. So basically what we've covered here are 2 ways to be able to use our Orion ORCAN 2. We've got the standalone mode, which we featured by itself, master-slave mode, which is simply just adding another identical light like itself downstream via a XLR DMX cable. And then we're going to get into now DMX. So I get this question all the time. What is DMX? So to simply answer that question, DMX, better known as Earl Simmons, was better known as his stage rapper DMX. He's an American rapper and actor. He began rapping in the early 1990s and released his debut album, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, in 1998 to both critical acclaim and commercial success, selling 251,000 copies within its first week of release. DMX is also digital multiplex. So digital multiplex is a standard used to control various types of lighting from manufacturer to manufacturer. You can try to understand if there are hundreds of thousands of different lights out there. If they don't have the same protocol, they're not going to communicate together. So think of DMX kind of like the 1/4-inch cable on a guitar. What I'll do right now is I'll just put the light back on, so you can just see my face better. Perfect. So think of it like a patch cord. The patch cord became somewhat standard on all electric guitars, acoustic guitars. Sure, there's iterations, there's been MIDI cables, there's been stereo TRS cables, but generally every single device that's out there, whether it be an acoustic, electric, a bass, guitar, is going to be 1/4-inch. They've standardized this because you can't have a 1/4-inch guitar than an XLR input on the amp. It's 1/4-inch to 1/4-inch. Standardization has been across the board with audio as well with XLR cables, and that's similar with DMX. So DMX is basically a language. So DMX is basically any controller that you use, and we'll get into some consoles and what we have as an example here in a second. Whether you're using an Orion controller with another brand's light, another brand's controller with an Orion light, another brand's Orion control, or another brand's controller with another light, and in conjunction, because you may have some Orion products, you may also have some other manufacturers' products out there. They all have to communicate together, and that's what DMX is. You can understand if somebody tried to have 4 or 5 different mixers or consoles to be able to control all the various lights. Generally, DMX is controlled from one device, and we'll get into what those devices can be in a second. They can certainly be anything from physical console all the way to computer controlled. They can be physical installation boxes that are maybe mounted or put into the walls, as an example. They could be dimmers. So they come in various different shapes and sizes, and they even come in app control, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. So awesome. We'll get into all the cool things that DMX can do for you. So, if you tried to control this many lights with standalone, you'd have a lot of people on stage trying to press buttons all at the same time. So clearly that's not how things are in the professional world. Some more examples of some really cool lighting, some lasers, and then again, really cool festival from electronic dance music in terms of what you can do with lasers, with effects. All of these lights that you see here, there could be probably over hundreds of lights, maybe about 24 to 48 different light types. But within those light types, there are multiples, obviously. So like I said, trying to control all these lights with multiple different consoles wouldn't make sense. That's why everything is all standardized with DMX, so that you come out of your console and you just keep linking lights. So like I mentioned too, the DMX Lighting Consoles will come in various shapes, sizes, and forms. On the very top left, we have a controller that would be more suited for an installation, would probably sit maybe mounted against a wall for a live performance, a venue that already had lighting installed. To the right of that on the top, we've got computer controlled. So there are actually very expensive devices out there that have the hardware and the computer software built right in. A lot of them are touch controlled. We won't get too much into that, obviously. We've got a very basic controller here, which we'll stick to because this is 101, but this just gives you the idea of what can be achieved out there in the lighting world. See in the bottom left corner, we've got something that's app controlled as well. It's kind of a dedicated app control or dedicated on an app on a laptop computer. And then beside that, we have your traditional physical console, quite large, obviously. That could probably do, we're talking like 24 to 32 lights when you really start adding ambiance to the event and the event starts getting a bit bigger. So what we'll do now is we'll focus on our Orion OR control. If you want to show just a full shot here for me, Ray. The console itself, perfect. Okay, so get down here. Okay, so this is our Orion DMX controller, our OR control. So obviously there's a lot of buttons to it. It can be quite intimidating if you're unsure of what all of these things are. We're not going to go through every single feature. We'll probably be here just for a couple hours just showing you everything that this can do because it's very intuitive. Although not very expensive compared to other controllers, this is very tactile, very easy to use, and you can accomplish a lot with something so inexpensive. So what we'll do now, we'll start with one light here. And I've got this OR control. How lights work is that on the back of this unit, you'll see I have one XLR cable here, one DMX cord. And that DMX cord on the other side is going to directly plug into the first light. I'll just do it again just to show you. So this might be short in distance. This is, not even a couple inches, but imagine that this is a run from your console. You're maybe 100 feet away. This is maybe 120 feet away, maybe up in the air as an example. You're connecting, the very first thing you're doing is connecting out of your console directly into the very first light. What we'll do is we'll take the output. I do not want the other light going on right now. I want to show you what one light can do by itself. With DMX, we always have to start with one, always wise to start with one, because it's channel one, like everything else in the world. You plug in a kick microphone, a vocal mic, you always generally start on channel one. So right now I'm in DMX mode. This is D001. If we have a shot of the console here, we get a shot of kind of both. I'll move this back. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So we have our scanners here. You'll notice that there are 12 buttons. We say scanners. This basically just represents a light fixture. Any light fixture that is DMX can plug into this controller. It does not have to be an Orion light. I start with an LED power cam because it's the easiest to understand with DMX. Again, this could be another manufacturer's. You could own an LED or a halogen as an example. Every light's going to be different, however. So just because there are a certain amount of channels on this light does not mean that all power cans are going to feature the same amount of channels. That's just not the case. This particular unit has 7 channels built in, and I'll go through some of the channels in a second. If Ray, you want to help me with a split screen just for a quick sec. Cool, thank you. Okay, let's go maybe the presentation. Half the presentation? Yeah. Or just do full presentation, yeah. Full presentation just for a second. Okay, perfect. So we've got the OR control. Really quickly first, not gonna get too scientific before we go into using the DMX with the lights itself, but just to clear something up in the air, DMX cable versus microphone cable, very quickly, they are both very similar. In fact, both will physically fit. I'm actually cheating and using a couple XLR cords here, mainly because of the fact that the connections are so low. If I were running a light 25 feet or past that, I would never use microphone cable. The quick science of it is, DMX cables are used to send digital information, where microphone cable is used to send audio information. So both have different impedances. Microphone cable can certainly go quite long distance. DMX can probably go triple, quadruple the distance. And that's needed because of the fact that your console is generally 100 feet away from the stage, and the lights are 30 to 40 feet in the air, and you're hooking up, I don't know, maybe up to 90, 100 lights. That's a lot of connecting cables, and you cannot have any transmission error. If you tried to replace a DMX cord with a mic cord in a long setup, you probably most likely see some signal degradation, similar to how we always teach in the pro audio world to keep your unbalanced connections as short as possible. So if you're using a patch cord to a DI box, that's an unbalanced signal. You want to keep that as short as possible, sending the XLR out of the DI box can go to front of house or wherever the mixer or the snake is, and that can be long distance because it's balanced. Very similar here to DMX versus microphone. If you're doing a quick little demo, a couple feet away, microphone cable will work in a pinch, but if you're looking to do some pro gigs, pro events, DMX is definitely the way to go, especially when you're using multiple lights and long distances. You don't want to have hiccups in the middle of a show. Cool. So that's a great shot here. So right now I've set the OR CAN 2 to DMX mode D001 via the LCD screen on the back. Some units have a dip switch on the back. That's simply just to save space. The dip switch will allow you to do different functions, similar to how you go and you press the menu button to toggle between different functions on the light itself. Some of our lights will have dip switches, and the manual will refer to you what exactly each dip switch does. And again, a big reason why you need to read the manual in these specific situations. So what we'll do now is we'll take a look at what this light can do. So we've got 7 channels here. This is a 7-channel light. Before you go into the next scene, Ray, I'm just going to quickly go here. So we've got channel 1 is your master dimmer, channel 2 is your strobe, channel 3 does a whole bunch of things, and we're going to show you exactly what each channel does. 4 is your function speed, 5 is your red intensity, 6 is green, 7 is blue. So if you can get a full shot of the console here, Ray. Thanks so much. Doing a great job. Perfect. Okay. So I've got the light set to D001. Again, that's our first light in the chain, so we want to make sure to have that set to channel 1, DMX1. And then what we'll do now is, I'm going to, on the top here, select scanner 1. Scanner 1 directly relates to DMX channel 1. So if you were to turn all this up without reading the manual, not much would get done. You'd sit there pretty frustrated because you can't get a whole lot of things happening on this unit. But when we refer back to the manual, we notice that this is a 7-channel light. And because it's a 7-channel light, it's going to occupy 7 channels on our console here. So what you can actually see is there's channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's actually a page select which will actually activate 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this one scanner on the top here has the ability to have 16 channels controlled. Now we're only dealing with a 7-channel light. There are lights out there that can consume 4 channels, 7 channels, 8, 16, 24. There are lights out there that could do over 30 channels of just with one light itself, whether that's intensity, different colors, a lot of different functionality. We're sticking with a very simple light right now. And we know if we try to bring up the red, which is assigned to channel 5, the green channel 6, and the blue channel 7, we're not going to get anything because we haven't read the manual. And if we read the manual, we know that channel 1 is the intensity. If we know it's the intensity, we now have light. So you've now officially entered the DMX world. So out of the console, directly into one light, we have that assigned to channel 1. We've assigned the very first scanner, which is this unit itself. We bring up the intensity, and then now we're able to choose the color we want. So I'm going to go hit the light so we just see the colors a bit better. Thank you for your patience. So we're off the show. Let's just say you want this a particular color as an example. We'll go over here so we can see the light a little bit better and what it's doing. Let's say we want to choose red. So we've got, because we've referred to the manual, the intensity all the way up. Let's say we do want full intensity. We have your full red control. So as you can see, similar to the light, how it said 0 to 255, it seems like a real odd number, 255, but it's because of the fact that this fader and all these faders represent that 0 is all the way at the bottom and 255 is all the way at the top. And then you have your fader increments, everything in between. So as an example, if you wanted this red, but you've got a client at a wedding that says that's way too bright, it's just killing the mood, I love the color, everything's fine, I just want less intensity, you have a few different options. You can actually go and you can take down the red on the channel while keeping the master intensity up, or you can keep that up and actually bring the overall intensity down. Why you'd want to bring the overall intensity down is if you had a combination of colors. Let's say you had, let's just do maybe like a purple or something here. Yeah, let's do a purple. So obviously we know our color dials, so red, green, blue, are able to give us a bunch of different variations. We've got purple here. Let's just say you wanted less intensity. Instead of having to grab the two faders and bring those down, maybe inequally, if you like the equality between the two, you can actually just bring the intensity down, and then obviously bringing it all the way down, as you see, will turn down the intensity fully. So if you have a controller and you've got a light, whether it's a par can, a laser, an effect light, if you're turning something up like this and you're getting light, you've now entered the DMX world. Things have become a lot more easy than you thought because you're not dealing with multiple lights, you're dealing with one thing at a time. And so when we focus on this, let's just pick a random color as an example, red. When we go, Ray, if you can potentially do a split screen to the PowerPoint. Yeah, to the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint? Yeah, please, that'd be great. Thank you. Yep, that's good just for now. Yep, so as you can see, channel 1 we've played around with a little bit. We've got channel 5, 6, and 7 we played around with, but we haven't touched these other ones, so we'll do that in a second. So before we go back to the lighting controller, just so you can remember, so remember that channel 2 is strobe, channel 3 has a bunch of different modes, which I'll show you, and then channel 4 is a function speed. So let's go back to the controller, Ray. Full screen. All good. Yeah, controller, yeah. Beauty. Thanks, man. So let's choose red as an example. We have our second channel here, which is the strobe. Watch what happens when I slowly start to bring this up. And as you can see, we now have full intensity with the strobe. We don't need to do that for too long, obviously. You get the point. But having it all the way down represents 0, meaning there's no strobe. And as soon as you bring it up to 1, which is the smallest little increment, it starts to strobe. So if this is the effect you're looking for, great, awesome. You could do this all day. So if this is what you wanted in the controller, DMX controlling doesn't have to necessarily be about setting up scenes and making really intricate things. You may want DMX just because you're unhappy with one light just doing one thing for its whole life. So you may want at certain points to be able to black the whole thing out. So we actually have a blackout button here. All DMX consoles do. No matter how many lights you have, whether it's one light, 20, 30, 40, whatever, you hit the blackout button and that's gonna kill everything. So going back to this here, we see that we have the function speed, like I was saying, not the function speed, the strobe speed. Here we have a bunch of different modes on the third intensity here. So as you can see, we've got, as we raise the fader, what we had on the light itself, which is the color pulse, that's actually now found on the fader here. So with DMX, this is just up a little bit quicker, and fourth is the function speed. So if I bring this up, you'll see that with that effect, this will actually choose the speed in which, as you can see, the light will emit. So this is going to be all done on the fly. So you don't need to set any scenes. You don't need to do anything. You may want to just toggle between just having a light like this all night doing its thing, and then all of a sudden the big part comes and you hit the lights, and then you're creating a really awesome show by just bringing up one fader. And maybe you have one of these, multiple of these, depending on what you're trying to do. But that basically shows you what you could do. We move up in pattern here. Basically everything that you can do on the light itself, you can do with the console. Just think of it, instead of being behind the light in the middle of the show trying to go through the menu setting, everything can be found in the console and way more. This is the best and perfect example because we're using something as simple as a par can. So we've got red, green, blue, as I mentioned. But then what we can do now is we can hook up another light. And when we hook up another light, I'm going to show on the presentation here, right? Perfect. Perfect. So there's two different ways that we can go at it. You want to introduce a second light. So you've got the first one going. You picked your color green as an example. Everything's fine, but you don't have enough coverage, or you're looking to illuminate somewhere else but the exact same color. The beauty with DMX is you don't need to do a bunch of home runs, which means that typically in audio, if you want to have 4 monitor sends, you need to run 4 independent cables from the mixer to the speaker, another one from the mixer to another speaker, another one over and over and over again for the musicians. And that's if they didn't want them daisy chained. In this situation with lighting, what you're able to do is come out of the console into one light, and then with DMX, out of that light to the next one. So that's how DMX works. The beauty of setting up DMX is that it's just a daisy chain of cables. And the beauty is it really doesn't matter if you have these 2 lights set up physically first in the chain or if they're last in the chain. DMX will only respond to the channels that they are on. So if you plug into a light that's not D001, and then you plug out of that to a light that is D001, everything will respond accordingly, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what you want to do now is you're perfectly happy with the one light with the color, you just want to add more lights, and you want to be on the same DMX channel. So what I'll do now, if you want to go back to the screen here, thanks, right? We can actually go, and I've got this other light hooked up now that you see right here. Just see better in the view. Perfect. It's going to probably blind me in the eye, but it doesn't really matter. So what I have right now is this is an output cable that will now plug out of the very first OR CAN 2 we're using. So the signal chain will look that we're going out of the console directly into the light via DMX, and then now we're going to come out of this light to the next light. And as you can see here, typically, just like master-slave mode without a DMX controller, we've got both lights doing the exact same thing. Say you're not happy with that, you may want red as an example. There you go, you've got red. You have the exact same functionality, you've got the strobe, you've got the speed, everything. The lights will be identical. This is great for most people because you don't have to worry about multiple lights in assignment. This is if you are perfectly happy with all the lights that are in sequence doing the exact same thing in terms of one light type. So we have an OR CAN 2, you can use any other manufacturer, it really doesn't matter. Typically when you daisy chain these lights together, they will react similar to master and slave, except now you have a DMX console to be able to provide the commands wirelessly, or not wirelessly, but wired I should say, but remotely. So we're perfectly happy. It's we've got red, we've got green, we've got blue. You're now into the world of DMX, which is fantastic. So the question then becomes, what if you want a little bit more control? So you want to go to the next screen, Ray? Thank you. You'll see how we moved from both lights being on channel D001, which means that they're both affected by the scanner button 1. Let's say we wanted the second light to have independent control. Sometimes we wanted the 2 lights to do the same things, the 2 OR CAN 2s, but sometimes we don't want them to, because maybe one's on one side of the stage, one is on the other. They might be side by side, you want sort of different effects. So what you would do, on the screen here you see, we've now switched the light to channel D017. And I know that's probably the most random number ever. Why didn't you start with 2? Why didn't you start with 3? We go shot back here at the OR control, Ray. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. As you can see here, as I mentioned, we have one scanner, which represents one of these lights, which is daisy chained to another one. We've got channel 1 through 8. We know when we page select, we have page or channels 9 through 16. And why we do this, you can imagine if this console had another 8 faders, it would be quite large in size. The page button allows so that the first 8 pages or first 8 channels are here, and then the next 8 channels are on the second page. Because again, there are some lights out there that will actually occupy 10, 12, 14, 16. There are lights that do, like I said, 24 and plus channels, where this would kind of be a little bit limited. You'd only really be able to use so much. But with most of the lights you see here, all the lights, you can obviously use it with this controller, very tactile as you've seen, easy to use. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move back to this light, the very first one we had here in the chain. And as you can see, it's selected at D001. Just unplug this for a second so you kind of see a bit better. That's the beauty of DMX. It's not audio, so you can unplug things all you want. No pops or squeaks. So we've got D001, all fine and dandy. They're doing the same thing, but I don't want this doing the same thing. I want this to be on a separate channel so I can control it. And I'm going to move this to channel 17. You'll see why. I hit enter. By the way, if you've never done lighting before, you'll find that lighting is the exact opposite of audio. So where you would plug the female XLR typically out of a console, the female XLR is actually going to be plugged in to the light. And they do that on purpose. Why? Because 48 volts of phantom power in a mixer can do quite a lot of damage to a light, which is why they reverse them. You'd have to really go out of your way to reverse a DMX cord to make it work in an audio situation and vice versa. So that's generally why the connections are backwards, really just to save any instances that may happen and may occur. So what we'll go do now is we're set to channel D017 on this one light. The other light I still have on channel 1. So what will happen now is if I go here, channel 2. Let me make sure I got this connected here. Okay, input 1. Set that to channel 17. Page A, there we go, perfect. Okay. So, we go to channel 1. We know that this is the intensity. Nothing's going to work with the intensity down. We'll see that. Want to do a full shot here, Ray? Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Cool. Okay, so we'll see that we've got, I'm going to do a better shot here. Perfect. See that we have one light that is green, and the other's not doing anything. And the reason being is we've got this one light here on D001, but we've addressed this to D0017. So I'll show you what happens. So let's say we wanted to pick green as an example. So I'll keep it pretty low so we can see the contrast between the two. So you have pretty low intensity for the green on the one side here. You want something different on this one side. So as we know here, we're looking at the console. You see that we have channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And why have we set the second light to 17? Because if we look at the scanners, channel 2 is 17. So now you're actually starting on another 16 channels for this one scanner. So as you can see that we hit the one scanner here. This is the original scanner set to channel 1. We bring up the intensity. Let's go back to page A. We bring up the green. Fine and dandy. Let's pick a color we want. And then what you'll do is deselect the scanner because you're no longer working with that scanner. Scanner, light, fixture. We call it scanner here. You can use a fixture. It could be a light. It could be anything. It's just a broad term. We hit number 2, scanner 2. We bring up that channel's intensity because this is channel 17 technically now. We bring up this intensity. We now have different colors. And as you can see, that's not affecting the other light whatsoever. I've got independently controlled, so I can make this whatever I want it to. If I want to make this full blue intensity as an example, if I want to make it red, you can even make this strobe where the other one isn't as an example. They are completely independent from one another. And the beauty of setting a system up like this is it gives you a lot of versatility and control. And the reason I say that is when I go back to scanner 1, I can turn them both down. Let's just make sure that all the channels are set down just to be flat, so everything's flat. The beauty of setting a system up like this, let's say, yeah, I love the independent control because once in a while I want to have one light do something different than the other. But there are times where I want the lights to do the exact same thing, which is the beauty of selecting both scanners, both lights. So I've selected channel 1, which is this light. I've also selected channel 2, which is this light. If I bring up the intensity, they're both green. They're both red. They're both blue. They both strobe at the same time, both have the same functionality. And that's, you don't have to stop here. That's just an example of 2 lights as an example with the ORCAN 2. This has 12 scanners, or 12 options of lights. So one option could be that, yeah, you could have 12 of these, and they can all be independent of one another. If you didn't want that, they could all be set to channel D001, which for presentation purposes and everything going on, I'm going to set this back to D001. I want these to be grouped just for ease of use, because there's a lot going on right now. So if I go to DMX, I'm going to go down to channel 1 again. And as you can see, it will do the exact same thing. Put this in focus a little bit better. We're now back to stage 1. So it's no longer on scanner 2 because we've addressed it to D001 again. So if I bring this up, the lights will come up the exact same. We've got red, we've got green, we've got blue, we've got our intensity, we've got strobe, we've got everything. Everything's working great. Perfect. So great. You've found out how to use DMX. You can use it manually. Whether you want to sit there and strobe all night, that's kind of what you want to do. Bring it down when you don't want to. Put it in sound active. Put it in all the different modes that you can do on the light itself, but remotely now. What we want to do now is set scenes. So we don't want to use everything manually. We want to be able to set what's called scenes up, so then that way we can literally just press a button or a couple buttons, and a lot of different things happen without us having to monitor the console the whole time. So I'll show you how we do this. And again, we're going to go at this relatively slow, but it's probably going to be quick for a lot of people. By all means, there's a whole portion in the manual, and again, this will be available to rewatch as well. So if there's some things you missed, by all means, get some questions in. So here, what we'll do, I'm going to set this to program. So right now we're in manual mode, so we're able to just kind of do things on the fly, show you how things work. We've got DMX working successfully 100%. So now what I want to do is I want to program everything. So I'm going to hold down the program button. As you can see, it's blinking because I'm in program mode. What you'll also notice, anytime you power this on, anytime you go in or out of program mode, it puts the lights into blackout. It does that because if you had some pretty high-powered strobes and you hit that button ready to program and it activates it and there's somebody on stage in front of the light, it's a real good control to just kind of kill everything right away. And that's not just these cans, that's anything plugged into the console itself. So let's get started into creating some scenes. Very basic, all I have is just 2 lights right now. Again, you could create scenes up to 12 lights. They don't all have to be ORCAN 2s. It could be a combination of ORCAN 2s, other companies, Parcans, our lasers, our effects, but obviously you want to group these together if that's what your intention is. You do not want to group a Parcan with a laser on the same channel because their channels aren't going to align. So when you bring up the first fader, one will be the intensity, the other is going to shoot a laser. So you want everything on their own channel unless they're the same light type, and you want them both to do the exact same thing. So hopefully I made that clear. So what we'll do now is we have blackout. So that's the first thing you got to do. Because you start programming and thinking that things aren't working when really it's just blacked out with a button. So what we'll do now is we have 2 lights that are working fine. What we'll do is start creating some scenes. So on the console itself is where this all happens. Again, pretend these are 20, 30, 40 feet away. I'm just using these here so we can actually see everything and the changes. So we're in program mode, and it's actually this simple. Quite a bit more complicated, make it more lights, but let's just keep it simple with this. We bring up the red intensity. Let's just say we want to create a scene with that. That's a great looking scene. What we do is we hit the MIDI record button once, and then you'll see on the very top here, it says scenes, and we have 8 scenes to choose from, and there are multiple banks. So it's not just, not like there's 8 scenes, that's it. There's hundreds of scenes to choose from, or to even create once you actually make them. So what we do now is we'll bring up the red intensity, hit the MIDI record button. We're happy with this as the first scene. Watch everything flash. So you've now created a scene. So scene 2 is red. Scene 1, sorry, is red. My apologies. So what we do now is, let's say you want a second one. Let's say you want the next scene to be green, as an example. We hit the MIDI record button, which is basically the record button to be able to record these scenes. Hit number 2. It saves that. We can verify that by hitting number 1, it still says red, 2 is green. When we go to one more, let's do full blue, MIDI record blue, and I'm just going to go at it pretty quick here. MIDI record 4, and let's do here 5. There's nothing specific. I'm just choosing different colors so you can see what's happening right now. So move that up here, do MIDI record. We'll do, I forgot it was on 5 or 6, doesn't really matter, just for argument's sake. Move that here, 6, MIDI record, 7, MIDI record, and let's just do 8. Red, green, and blue. It's full white, MIDI record 8. So now, that's my red, green, blue, kind of a light blue. 4 and 5 are the same. Obviously I made them the same, so I'm going to take that down there. Maybe make it something like that. MIDI record 5. So then if we go 1 is red, 2 is green, 3 is blue, 4 is lighter blue, 5 is a greenish red, we've got purple for 6, 7 is kind of a greenish red again, and then we've got a whitish blue for 8. So we've programmed 8 scenes. These can be used this simple. So let's say you are a quarter way in the presentation or the application, what you're doing, you're perfectly fine with the lights staying red, but then, a quarter way, halfway through the event, something needs to change green. A real easy thing to do by setting just scenes, because you can just automatically on the fly have the scenes available to you. You don't need to be manually figuring out exactly where everything is once you pre-program everything as scenes. So we're happy with the 8 scenes, that's fine. These can be generic, the sky's the limit. This is lighting, right? So whether you want them all red, green, blue, no red, no blue, whatever. So this is just an example. We're gonna take it out of program mode now. So if we hit the button for 3 seconds, we know we're out of program mode, it's flashed, the blackout's flashing. Back on here. You can choose any of the scenes manually here. So this would be if you just want to quickly, give me red. You've got red on the stage, you want to keep it red, perfectly fine. But from there, what you can actually do, there's a couple different options. You have what's called auto mode. So when I'm in auto mode, as you can see here, it's actually cycling, very quickly of course, through all the colors that we just assigned, scenes 1 to 8. Obviously that's quite quick. Maybe if you're doing a dance party, EDM, you've got some hip hop, something going on, this might be appropriate, maybe not appropriate for the ceremony as an example. So we have 2 different faders here that relate directly to the scenes, the speed time and the fade time. So the speed time, as you can see, is set maximum, which is up here, and the fade time is set low. So that way, there's really not much of a gradual effect. But as I slowly start to bring the speed down, you'll see, yeah, that's a little bit more manageable. Let's say we want to do some lighting for, like I said, a ceremony or something. You want to keep it pretty tame, but you want to obviously keep the mood going. That might be a little quick. You're happy with the transitions, but you want to slow down the fade rate time. You'd actually bring that up, and then you'll see here that they slowly transition a lot better. Maybe let's say something like that would be perfect and ideal for a wedding as an example. Maybe some live streaming if you're doing an acoustic guitar set, duo set, solo set. So we've been able to do that here. We also have what's called music mode. So when you put it in music mode, you'll see that we're able to change the light, bass octave, sound active. And all that's doing, we'll put some music on later, you can see what all these lights are doing in person. Not in person, but at least in live streaming. But you can see here that we've got full control over the lights itself. You can see what they're doing. They're sound active here as well. So those 8 scenes can either be selected independently, one by one, if you wanted to just get at them quick, or you can actually put them in auto mode, which again will just cycle however you want the fade and the speed time. And then we also have the music mode, which will set those 8 scenes we had, and they will move to the music according from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're not going to get too into it. There are other things called chases as well. Chase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 chases. Don't think that this is only 8 scenes. That's it. There's 8 scenes available right away, but there are tons of different banks. So think of it like presets. Like you have 4 presets on a guitar pedal. That has a guitar amp head that goes with it. It's not just 4 settings. You'd have to go to bank 2 for another 4 settings, bank 3. There's multiple banks on this. And what the chase allows you to do is you could pick any of the scenes. Again, there's hundreds of scenes you can make on this, and the chase will allow you, once you press it, to assign any of the scenes to the chase. So the chase doesn't have to be scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The chase could be 8, 3, 2, 4, 1, back and forth, to create some really cool sequential movement with the lights itself. I also see from Wes Garland an excellent question. Is there an audio input on the board? Awesome question. There, in fact, is an audio input on the board. I'm using it right now. We'll actually demonstrate a little bit later in the performance what this can do in terms of sound active. Built-in mic, of course, which is great. Built-in microphones built right in, not a lot of extra use that needs to be done because it just moves to the music. The nice part about an audio input directly to the board, you can turn up or down that audio feed whenever need be, so the lights don't have to move to the music all the time. And then on top of that, it's a lot better of a direct source, so it's not trying to pick up the vibrations in the room, it's getting a direct audio signal right into the console. That way the lights move a lot more accurately to the music. So Wes Garland, really good question, really appreciate that. Cool, so now what we'll do, we've created scenes with our OR cans. What I'm gonna do now is, I'm gonna plug in some additional lights. And these are not par cans. We're going to be plugging in right now effect lights to see how they work and operate. Okay, so I'm going to kill the light for a second. I'll turn the light on for a second. Okay, so I'm done with these lights. I can take all of them down. I'm going to take them out of music mode, put it into manual mode with the press of a button, which is just done here. Manual mode on top here. So right now you're back to being able to use this on the fly. So let's, as you can see, full intensity. We want that down because we're going to be focusing on another light right now. So they're both on channel 1. So these both directly relate to scanner 1. I have another light right now. Dre, if you want to go to the presentation. Yeah, so and as I mentioned with the cans, you can hook up multiple cans as well. So just going back to what we were talking about, you can hook up to 4. You could hook up 6, 8, 10, 12. You can assign them all to D001. That way when you hit scanner 1, they'll all do the same thing if that's what you want. If that's not what you want, and you want independent control sometimes, with the ability to sometimes be able to group them all together, this would be your best bet. You'd assign them 17 channels separately. This isn't the same with every audio console. This is just pretty much proprietary to ours, and there are obviously some controllers that are the same size which also occupy 16 channels. You want to space them apart 16 channels, so then that way each light independently has their own scanner function, so we can control them properly. What you would not do is have an OR can on D001 and then an effect light on the D001 as well, because they're going to be different functionality, which we'll show you in a second. So it's okay to group light types together, so the same products together in multiples, because they'll talk together, they'll have the same channels, and they also work independent, like you see. So this would give you 4 independent scanner controls, and you can control the lights however you see at the same time if you wanted to, and then independently. All the fixture addresses, like I mentioned, a kind of a handy little chart to show you that fixture 1 is related to DMX address 1, fixture 2, as we saw, 17, and it just goes up by 16 from there. So they're not random numbers, they make complete sense, and they obviously need to be spaced apart because you want to control them independently. So now we'll get into a multicolor effect light. This is our ORFX 102. Good shot there, yeah. So on our console, if you want to take a look at the console first, right? Yep, yeah, no problem. Sweet. Yeah, console view. Perfect, thank you. So we know scanner 1 is going to be the cans, so we don't want to turn those on right now. I want to keep those down because there's no need for them right now. I want to show you the other light. So we're going to deselect scanner 1 because we don't want to deal with that right now and keep those off. And I've selected scanner 2. And then as you see here, we've got effect light that's working. If you want to do the over above shot, yeah, there you go. Right on my stomach, there you go. So this light has totally different properties. Sure, it's RGB. There's red, green, there's blue, but the channels are completely different. So if you want to go through the presentation, Ray, the PowerPoint, excellent, it's perfect. So as you can see, 7 channels as well, but they're totally different 7 channels. What they do. So channel 1, again, from 0 to about roughly halfway, is going to give you a multi-effect clockwise. you'd actually change the pattern to be counterclockwise just by raising the fader up a little bit. So you can get really accurate in terms of where you want to place the effect. We also have 2 speed controls. We have the effect selects group, which basically we'll get into as well. We'll go channel by channel to show you exactly what everything does. But again, this is 7 channels, totally different 7 channels. It's an effect light, so it will use different properties and principles than what an OR can or what a PAR can will do. This is why I'm showing you more than just one example. If you can nail down a PAR can, whether it's 3 channels, 4, 7, 12, whatever, if you can nail down an effect light, if you can nail down a laser light, those are pretty much all the light types out there that will be commonly found in the MI and DJ world. So what we'll do now is, if you want to go to the console screen. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. Cool. So we've got a bunch of different effects, as you can see here. We do an overhead shot. Yeah, there we go. This will actually just give you different patterns. So this is moving clockwise, and then this will actually move counterclockwise. And this is all done just by moving the first fader. So this is manual. This is on the fly. This is like you've got this one light. Maybe you want to turn off, then once in a while just hit it for effect as an example. You don't need to create scenes or anything like that. This will actually do everything just the way it is. So I've got 2 lights actually hooked up right now. They're both on the same channel because I want them both to do the same thing. If I did not want them to do the same thing, sometimes, once in a while, I would assign the one light to a channel 17 channels ahead, which would be 33. So I'd have channel 1, which would be fixture 1, which is where my cans are, both cans. And then I've got channel 17 where both of my hypno rays are. Again, they don't have to be on the same channel. I'm putting them on the same channel for ease of use right now so you can see the demonstration. So we've got basically a cool effect pattern here. The second fader will actually slow that down or raise it up. So this is right at the bottom at 0, and then bringing it up to 255 will actually change the pattern in sequence. Channel 3 on top of that is another speed control. So you can actually see here, we've got some pretty cool funky effect that we can do and use in conjunction with the second fader. So we use it all the way down as an example. That would be with channel 2 and 3 down. Playing around with the second fader here to get a little less speed as an example. So this is all manually on the fly here. We've got channel 4, which we can see here is just simply one of the lenses. So actually on DMX channel 4, we give you the ability to be able to just control just the lens. So that's one lens, as you can see. We've got control for a second lens, for the third, and then the last channel, channel 7, is for the last lens. So in conjunction, you could actually, as you see here, you can use it like this, more of an effect, or you can actually just raise channels and faders 4, 5, 6, and 7 to be able to get any color combination you want. So let's just say we wanted kind of all blue. Might be a little difficult to get all blue, but there you go. Blue and blue. Done. We could, as an example, and I'll do it right now to show you. Ray, you want to go back to the console screen? Thank you so much. We'll be able to see the hypno ray itself, the effect light, but just to give you an idea, because we'll be programming this right now with 8 scenes, and we'll program the laser, and then we'll get everything up and going to show you what we can do in action. So right now, what we'll do is hit the program button, 3, 2, 1. I'm in program mode. So what I'll do now is I'm going to kill the lights. And what I will do, kill the blackout, bring all these down. And let's say I'm perfectly happy with this color combination. Perfectly fine for the first scene. I'm going to go back to the console ray, deselect 1 or 2 because I'm done with the hypno rays that are on channel 17, scanner 2. Back to scanner 1, which is where these OR cans are found. And let's just say I wanted to create the first scene, which is red. I would go and I'd hit MIDI record. I have my hypno ray. I have my cans that are red. Perfectly fine. I'm going to save that to number 1. Scene 1. What I'll do now is I'll change it to green because I want to create another scene. Deselect 1, back to 2. And I'm going to pick 4 other random colors for the hypno ray, just at random here. MIDI record 2. I'm going to do it again here. I'm just going to go quick because obviously your time is precious. So we got that again. Okay, so this is scene 3 done. Maybe I'll do like a kind of a purplish color here. Deselect, back to 2. Select another 4. And this is just random. Like you could get very particular. I'm just doing this on the fly right now to show you how you can create scenes like that.
MIDI record, let's do 3. Then let's go pick another few colors here. Something random, perfect. Back to 1. Let's do green and red. Number 4. Again, I'm just picking at random here, do 5. Back to 1. Let's do that, it's sort of a white, let's do 6. And then let's bring this here. Another one here, let's do scanner 2. All the colors are selected there. Yeah, let's just pick a white. MIDI record 6. Different colors here. Number 1. Sorry for the boredom. This has to be done. All this programming ahead of time makes it quite a bit easier on the spot to be able to do things. So we'll do that. Number 7 here. Okay, so that would be learn 7, and then we're on the very last one, so thank you for your patience, but this is just what you can do with programming, how easy it can be. So we're good there for the hypno-ray, and then we want to change the last color to, let's just say, an all white, and then maybe record 8. Perfect. So we've done creating scenes with the Orcan 2 independently with the hypno-rays. And again, it's not dedicated towards this light or that light. These can be any lights. It's just as an example that power cans and these effect lights can work together. So what we can do now is we hit the program button. We're out of program mode, back to manual mode, where then we can select each scene. So as you can see, that was the first scene that we made. This is the second scene. We're on to the third scene, fourth scene, which by the way, these look great. Go back. Yeah, it looks great. That's the fifth scene, sixth scene, our seventh, and finally our eighth. And obviously with this, there's no reason why you couldn't use it the same way you wanted to use the OR cans, and then maybe put them into auto mode. And what this will do is it'll cycle between all the different 8 scenes as I choose with the fade time and the speed time. You can be perfectly happy with this as a DJ performer, just doing its thing all day kind of thing. Easy to use, but at least it gives you some adjustability on the fly to be able to create your own scenes. And again, you're not limited to 8 scenes. Like this has tons of different banks, so you can do these 8, move on to another 8, do another 8, do another 8, and then the chases will allow you to choose any of those scenes, whether it's scene 200, down to scene 162, up to scene 182, down to scene 90. You could create with chases any combination of any scene. So think of a scene exactly like, as I mentioned, this is one scene. We've created a single scene. This is a second scene. We've created a third scene. So whether it's 1 light, 2 lights, multiple, a scene is a scene. A scene is when you press a button, that's what the audience is going to see. That's one still shot of the performance. You may want that for the whole shot, for the whole performance. That's great, suffice, that's fine. But typically you want a little bit more action if you're using DMX. And this is really good because with the press of a button in auto mode, you can really make it look like you've got a lot going on and that you're DMXing on the fly, when really it's kind of just going through all the patterns that you really made. As you can see here in a full shot, we've got pretty much everything going. So we've got the hypno ray behind us, as you can see. We've got the power can that's fluctuating in color. Sweet. So let's take this out of auto mode, put it into manual mode. I'm going to select scanner 1 because I don't want these lights on anymore. I'm going to select scanner 2 because I also don't want the hypno ray on anymore because I'm moving on to my next product. And I'm probably going to shut the light on or put it on and then turn it off really quick, but just so I can show you the light itself. If I want to go back to the presentation. Thanks, buddy. Cool, so we're on to the OR Laser 103 now. So we've DMX'd a power can by itself in multiples. We've DMX'd a hypno ray by itself and with the OR can 1. And then now we're pretty much in the final light type that you may run across, which is, in my opinion, the coolest for sure. It's the laser. This is a multicolor laser that you see. It's RGB, so there's actually red, green, and blue lasers built inside. A very high output. And there's actually 3 lenses built in, so it's not one tiny little laser, there's actually 3 that emit and do some really cool patterns. It's actually on a motor that's not fixed, so you can actually, and I'll show you with DMX, you can actually change the XY pattern in terms of how wide or how short the laser throws. Very important, not when you're doing events where it's just like, oh, I want to throw the laser everywhere and make the best effect. There could be some events where you have to have the laser pointed towards a specific area or not pointed towards a specific area because perhaps there could be examples of
people who just don't want lights in their eyes, lasers in their eyes, they're off to the side of the stage and they're getting this side wash. You can actually, with DMX, and I'll show you, actually pan and tilt an XY pattern where the laser lands, which is awesome because of the fact that you have such variability on the console, whether you want it or not. So yeah, let's get into the OR laser. Make sure it's working before I bite my tongue. It is. Beautiful. Okay, we'll do a full shot here, Ray, if you don't mind. I'm going to shut the light off. If you want to go back to the presentation quickly, I'll just show you how many channels this occupies. Very convenient that all these occupy 7 channels. Not all the Orion lights occupy 7 channels. It's very convenient that these 3 that I chose do, because of the fact that I want to show you that even though they have 7 channels, they are all completely different. You know, think of it like, you know, this light is a drum kit. You know, and you wouldn't put one microphone in front of it. You'd have channel 1 as a kick, channel 2 as a snare. Think of it kind of like that, so that you've got independent control of each function. You know, you wouldn't want to bring up one fader and it do a whole bunch of stuff. You want that one fader to do something specific. So let's just get here. So I have a question from Gary Williamson. Manual selection of scenes with fades between the other scenes? Yep. Yeah, you can manually select the scenes if you want to, like I chose, and you can fade between them like I showed you as well. You can assign them to a chase as well, and that chase will select any of the scenes. There's like hundreds of scenes that you can choose from. So great question. Yeah, you can definitely manually select them right on the fly, as you see here, because I've had them. And then you can have them in auto mode, like as I showed you as well. And that would just be cycling through the lights as well, and you have variability of how fast you want that too. So great question. Let's go back to manual mode. First I'm going to do this. I'm going to get rid of the light. I don't need that on. I also don't need my Hypno Ray on, so I'm going to turn this off. Beautiful. And I can do that and not have to go to the back of the light because I'm using DMX. So on scanner 3 now, I have this light assigned to a different channel, obviously. As you can imagine, it's 16 channels ahead of the other one. Can you go to the presentation, please? Perfect. Okay, so I actually have this laser set you see in front of you here, which I'll get in the screen in a second. There's a laser that's right here. It's the OR laser 103. It's going to be pointing up to the ceiling. We'll have a better shot of it in a second. In action, really kind of needs a bit of haze, so I'm going to throw the haze on to show you exactly what it can do. So we've got a great aerial shot right now. So we've got 7 channels that, like I mentioned as well. Can you just go back to the 7 channels for a second, quick? Presentation? Yeah, thanks, Ray. Okay. So yeah, there's a bunch of different functionality here. We've got just one channel alone gives you 5 different options. Really, the first isn't an option, it's lasers off. Sound active mode, auto mode, static patterns, and dynamic patterns. So let's just go through some of those right now. And I'm just moving the fader up, going through those patterns. 0's all the way down to 49 is just slightly up. And then obviously as you increment and keep going and pushing the fader up, it'll select different patterns as you see. So this is me raising one channel, that's it, as you can see. So let's do an overhead shot, Ray. Cool. All right, I think I could probably get a little bit better shot. Okay, there we go. Okay, so right now it's in sound active. And we're not going to be doing that all day, so don't you worry. Sound active mode. As we raise the fader, there are different effects that are happening. All I'm doing is I'm on channel 1. That's all I'm doing. This is all manual on the fly mode. So, you know, you can create some really cool scenes, as you can see here. This is just going through some dynamic patterns, nothing specific. This is just if you don't want to use DMX in terms of creating scenes. I'm just going to turn the hazer off here. More than enough haze to get the point across. But as you can see, like, you can actually just keep it still. And then what you can also do, channel 2 will switch between a bunch of different dynamic patterns. Some wide, some short. And then what's really cool is being able to control the beam itself. So as you can see here, the beam is becoming wider, becoming more narrow. And then the Y pattern on the second channel, channel 4, here we go. Perfect. Okay. So just to give you an aerial view of what's going on sort of in the ceiling here, so the lights make an effect. I won't be the most glamorous shot of a boardroom, but I mean, it gives you an idea of what's going on here. I'll bring this back in a second. So as you can see, it's doing its thing, having a good time. Let's just pick one, find one spot. Perfect, right there. Okay. So we have the laser pretty static right now, not doing anything. Channel 2 goes between these different cool dynamic patterns. I'm just raising the channel. It's doing its thing. Maybe you found something you like. I'm just going to bring it all the way down. And then with channel 3, when I bring that fader up, it's actually controlling the X pattern. So it's actually moving the motor itself against the laser, so it's creating kind of a cool effect. So we're able to actually see how wide and how broad or how narrow we want the light itself. So if we want to make it pretty tight, we can do that. We can have almost all the lasers themselves right down the middle. This might be important because you want to have some sort of creative atmospheric effect on one thing specifically, or you just want lights everywhere. As you can see here, you can put them everywhere. So whether you want them tight or not, this can actually be controlled on the console itself. It's very neat. So whether you want them small or not, and then the dynamic patterns will actually respond accordingly. So they actually won't go outside of whatever XY pattern you assign. So if you want it tight like this, that's great. You can actually have it pretty wide, or pretty narrow if you wanted to as well. All this is not controllable via the light. So you would not be able to have this kind of accessibility to the laser or any of our lights without being able to use a DMX controller. Most people again might say, "Oh, would you want the lasers tight? You want them everywhere?" That may not be the case depending on the situation. Okay, a question here from Patrick Field Dodge. Turn the laser off first. Annoying anybody? Is there one that is great on auto off the sound that's just plug and play for someone who's never tried? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we brought this up with Wes Scarland earlier too, which is a great question. It's got the auto mode, which is awesome with the press of a button, but then you can hit the music mode. And then there's an RCA input on the back of the OR control. So you can actually come out of a powered speaker that you're sending signal to go into the console, and it will do everything, and it will react to any of the music that the loudspeaker is doing. And then, let's see here, put that down there. And then also, what we've got is the ability to, like I said, to be able to go directly into the console. It's also got a built-in mic as well. So if you don't want to plug an RCA input, you just want to have the controller set up, react to the music, you actually don't need any additional gear. But the beauty of being able, like I said, to go out of like an interface, to be able to go out of a powered speaker, to take some sort of alternative output from a sound source directly into it, is accuracy. So the light will be a lot more accurate, and it will move to the music a lot more appropriately than just kind of flashing around doing its thing, trying to pick up bass vibrations. But yeah, this console is the one for you. This is only a couple $100, few $100. A lot of functionality. You control up to 12 lights, like I mentioned as well. So what I'll do now, I'll just create a scene with all the lights that we have here. Just for time's purposes, I'm just gonna let the laser do its thing. It's gonna be in whatever scene I happen to choose and press the button on, it's gonna react, that's fine. I don't need to sit here going through specific laser patterns. I think you get the idea of what you're able to do with this and create in scenes if you wanted to. So I'm just gonna let the light do its thing. So 3, I don't have to worry about. Scanner 3 is that laser by itself. I've turned it off. I don't want to control it anymore. Channel 2, I want to bring up these particular colors on the Hypno Ray. As you see, that's off. I'm on channel 2, bringing the Hypno Ray up. I like that color, all the colors. I go back to channel 1, which is my OR can. And I know there's a lot going on right now, but know that I've only got 3 light types going on right now, and I'm independently controlling them. So let's just say I want to make that one red. So I've got all 3 lights going. I want to make this one thing a scene right here. So what I do is go into Program, get rid of the blackout, and I got to do all this again, of course. So we go here. So let's just pick 4 random colors. Beautiful. Let me pick a random pattern for the lasers here. Sure, something like that looks cool. Sure. And again, whenever I hit the record button in scene, it will stop on whatever function it's doing right now. I don't need anything particular with the lights and the lasers, so that's fine. We go to number 2. I'm going to select that. I'm good with red. MIDI record, because we're programming the scene. MIDI record 1. Saves the scene. I want to pick another couple colors here. Something random. Let's just do that. Sure. Different color on the OR can. Let's say green, for argument's sake. MIDI learn 2. Let's do blue. As an example, back to the Hypno Ray. I want to be able to control, let's just make them all kind of, make them all blue. Make them all blue. Record and do 3. Laser's still doing its thing. It's just going to capture whatever
is going on there. Change the colors now. Back to 1 with the OR can. I'm going to do, let's say, a combination of red and green. Save that to 4. I'm going to do this color here. And again, I'm just going at random. It's, you know, you can definitely get more specific, but this is just kind of going at it quickly so we can create some scenes, get up and going. Okay, so let's do this here, purple. Perfect. Okay, we need to record 5. Let's do this, 2. Bring that down. Let's pick another couple colors here. Record 6. Another couple colors. Let's do all of them for white. We record 7. And let's do purple again. Not sure if I did purple already. There we go. And let's pick another couple colors. Perfect. And let's do MIDI learn. That's 8. So now we've got all the lights going. Hit the program button. Back here, I'm back into the manual mode. So now we're ready to use the lights. We're done programming the lights, whether it's 8 scenes, 1 scene, you know, hundreds of scenes. We've got all that ready to go. So let's say I want to put these in auto mode. So what I'll do, with the press of a button, it'll actually rotate between scenes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, over and over and over and over with the press of a button. So these are all the scenes that I just created, whether it was the laser, whether it was the hypno ray, or the OR can. This is going quite fast, obviously, because the speed time and the fade rate are set to max. This is just to show you as an example. Ray, if you want to show the console for a sec. And then if I slowly increase and decrease, you'll notice that these are probably going to be not the laser, because that was in sound effect, and that's perfectly fine. At any point, if you wanted to kill the laser, you could. You can keep the hypno ray and everything else on, but that's not what I want right now. I want that on, obviously. So let's give it a 3. Perfect. Cool. Awesome. So if we go back to the presentation, as you saw, we've got one controller that's controlling 3 different light types. And like I said, and how I have it set up right now, you can have multiple OR can ones as an example set to channel 1. And so it's not like you just need one as an example. You can actually set up multiples. Same with the laser, same with all the different products as well. You can have multiples on the same channel. You can have them all on different channels if you wanted to. The beauty again of having them on different channels is you can always group them together, like I said, by selecting the scanners that each channel is associated on. But most importantly, you're able to have some independent control if that's what you want. For this presentation purposes, I just want to group everything together. I didn't want to do scene 1, one par can, scene 2. You'd be here forever doing scenes. Not the most exciting part of lighting, obviously, but once everything's up and going, to just press a button and have all this happen. And it can get pretty complicated and pretty complex in terms of what you can do. So this is showing you a very basic skill set, but still at the same time, very cool and very intuitive. Cool, so let me just see here. Let's change this. Awesome. Cool. It wouldn't be, if I want to go back to the presentation, it would not be lighting with Yorkville Sound without showing our light products that we manufacture here in 550 Granite Court in Pickering, Ontario, Canada. These are our high output LP LED 4X and 2X lights. Definitely not inexpensive, but for the price, great, amazing bang for the buck in terms of what you can do. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can control our LP LED lights. I've got some that are on here as well. We'll just go quickly through the functionality of what we can do. On our built-in lights, and these lights are pretty much, I can show you exactly what they're doing right now. That's every single light off except for our LEDs, and I will show you. Want to do full screen, Ray? Just how bright that these can get. So this is obviously just a small little intensity, and then if I bring up the color fade, you can see just how much light these output. I've got one directly facing me. I have another one right here as well. So technically these are 8 pods, so 2 LP LED 4Xs, but you just see the amount of throw, the amount of output that these have. They're in full intensity right now as well. So if I want to go back to the presentation, DMX control is built in. We're not going to go through the DMX functions. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. Yeah, you can control the red, the green, the blue. There's W in terms of a white LED inside. That way RGB aren't trying to do white. There's a pure white. That makes the white look better. That also makes for other different color combinations to be able to look better. You can do oranges, you can do your pinks more successfully, purples. So the more LEDs that you have help with output, and then the LED colors that you have also help with color variety and intensity and realism. So it's got DMX control. We're not going to go through that. We've been through DMX. What we can do, we can hook this up
get it ready to go. It's got proprietary control, which we'll go into in a second, and Bluetooth control, which is really handy. And also on the bar itself, you really don't need much else if you just want to set it and forget it. Let's say for a wedding, for a corporate situation, you just want to fade as an example, maybe a live stream. The function switch, it's a rotary dial, which allows you to toggle between Bluetooth settings, which we'll get into in a bit, chases, fades, there's color fades, mixed color fades. There's about 8 to 10 audio modes as well, so it's not just one mode, move to the music, that's it. There are some very intricate lighting steps that happen. There's crossovers actually built into our lights that actually will react to the bass frequencies, and other lights will react different to the mids. Other lights will react, and colors will react different to the highs. Unlike really any other light out there. There's a mic built in for audio trigger as well, and there's an audio input 1/4 inch that can handle anything from speaker level, line level for really accurate audio representation in terms of the movement to the music. Sweet. We've got our LPC12 controller, a very tactile controller that goes with it, physical controller. This is proprietary to the LP LED series. The beauty of it is it doesn't require any AC power because it runs off of an XLR cord plugged into the lights that provides phantom power to the controller, which is very handy. One less thing we have to plug in AC-wise, the better. So the lights actually power the controller, which is very neat, via XLR and phantom power. It has more than enough power to power the console. This isn't like DMX, it's very tactile, so you can kind of just press a couple buttons and things are very well labeled on the unit. You could connect, obviously, this LPC12 to one of our LP LED 4Xs or our 2Xs, and then you could keep hooking up multiples from there. The only disadvantage would be that this is proprietary towards the light, so you aren't able to use this with any other products. But the beauty is if this is all you're using and you just want something simple and you don't want to get into DMX, this would be a really good thing to look at purchasing or renting through Long McQuade, because they also do very successfully rent all of these products, particularly the LP LED series. Shot of what you could do on the stage lighting controller. You have different patches. You can select which pods will react to the music, different fades, auto scene advance, very tactile, easy to use. There's a battery built in, so anytime that you go to a setting, unplug the unit, plug it back in, it will remember. So you don't actually have to worry about saving scenes and menu and deep diving. You can just select the colors you want, and then they can live in the controller. And every time you go up and you perform, you do a live stream, you play live, you can just connect it and the same settings are there from last time, which is great. But like myself, people like free, especially when it comes to the product. And that's why we have our LP control, which I've got on the screen right here, and I'll show you via Android. It's operational with iOS and Android. I'll go right up to the camera here so you can, that's tricky, that's tricky, here we go. So a lot of different things you can do on this itself. It is basically our LPC12, but everything online and wireless. So you can actually wirelessly control the lights. This can actually control up to 4 lights itself. I've got a few hooked up here, and I'll just show you an example of what you can do. So this app is free of charge. It works whether you rent, purchase the lights. You don't need any registration or anything. This controller will work, or this app will work with all the LED 2Xs and 4Xs out there in the field. So with the light itself and the controller, there are a bunch of different things that you can do. So if you want to show a shot here. So this is so quick to command that as soon as I press one of these buttons, the lights will react. So I'll show you with a simple color fade. So as you can see, just with the press of a button, we're able to change the colors. You can also change the speed too. So right now we have it on speed 1. You can go to speed 6, and it'll kind of slow things down a little bit. Won't be so quick depending on the application, and that's why we give you variability. Sometimes you want a quick fade, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want sound active, sometimes you don't. Really depends on what you're doing. There are, like I said, up to 4 bars that you can control on here, so this won't just control one LED 4X. It can control up to 4 independently, and then you can XLR link as many as you want from that point, as many as a wall outlet and power can handle. So we've got color fade, mixed color fade. We have a bunch of different audio modes to go through as well, which we'll show you. Audio step mode, and obviously the most annoying is the strobe mode. But all built right in. You can also select the color dials. So as you can see here, the light that's kind of pointing towards my laptop. Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect shot. You see that's changing color, just the one pod itself. And then I can go and I can change other pods. Let's just change it to some random colors. I have intensity of those colors as well, so turn them up and down. And the beauty is when I go to scene 2, back to scene 1, everything remembers everything that I did. So there's no guessing game, pretty easy to use. I'm going to turn the effect off, I'm going to turn these down a little bit. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So that's basically Lighting 101 with Yorkville Sound. You've got into the world of how to operate one of our lights independently. Very easy to use, like I mentioned as well. There's not a lot of deep diving you need to do to be able to find exactly what you want if you're happy with just one setting over and over for the whole night, whether it's one color, a fade, sound active. We're basically able to show you how 2 lights work together. And the same thing, you've got 2 here as an example. That's no reason why you couldn't have 3, 4, 5. You could keep going, obviously. We also showed you what you can do with DMX. This is just a tip of the iceberg. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can do with DMX. This is just scratching the surface with some very basic lights. But I mean, I'd start off, if you're looking for DMX, start with just one light. You know, don't try to daisy chain everything together. Just start with one light, channel 1. It could be D001, whatever the manufacturer's programmed it to be. Channel 1, try it with scanner 1 on our OR control or your DMX controller. If you're able to move up buttons and knobs and things move, you're in the world of DMX. So again, a real cliche thing to say from the manufacturer, but it's extremely important when it comes to lighting to read the owner's manual on both the console that you own and the lights that you own, because if not, you're going to be sitting there like the OR Can 2, not moving up channel 1, which is the intensity, bringing up all the other channels going, my light's not working, when really it's working perfectly fine. It's just a matter of education and knowing how each light works. When you do it enough like I do, you don't even need the manual anymore. You know these occupy a certain amount of channels and you can kind of go from there. So that, like I said, concludes our Lighting 101 presentation. By all means, throw your questions in the messages. We're going to get to as many as we can after I finish up the performance here. What we're going to do is we're going to throw the lights in live mode. It's one thing to program the light here. We've done all the programming that we need to do. We've done 8 scenes. Let's pretend that's 16, 32, whatever. We're happy with the amount of scenes we want. Now we want to put this into action. So again, I say thank you for all of your time. Especially for those of you who made it through the whole video. This can be a lot to take in, but certainly go back, ask any questions. It's not like I'm here and then that's it. I'm going to be monitoring these daily, so if you got a question in like a week, 2 weeks from now, by all means hit me up. My email address is dbutt, D-B-U-T-T, Darren Butt, @yorkville.com. Be more than happy to answer any of your questions, whether it be lighting or pro audio related, even if it's not towards Orion lighting, just something to help out to get your live performances, live streaming, just a little bit better. So what we'll do now is we've got some music ready to go. I've got my lights that are programmed. This will be the end of all talking for Lighting 101. And again, thank you so much for your time. We've set up all of our lights. We've set up our scenes. We've showed you how to use DMX. Now let's do the most important thing. Let's have some fun.
ladies, 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 here we go. Baby, what you get your body from? Tell me what you get your body from. Baby, what you get your body from? Tell me what you get your body from.
I got it from my mama. I got it from my mama. I got it from my mama. I got it, got it.
Baby, what you get your body from? Tell me what you get your body from. Baby, what you get your body from? Tell me what you get your body from.
I got it from my mama. I got it from my mama. I got it from my mama. I got it, got it.
Baby, what you get your body from? Tell me what you get your body from. Baby, what you get your body from? Tell me what you get your body from.
I got it from my mama. I got it from my mama. I got it from my mama. I got it, got it.
Ladies, here we go.
Long and McQuade, where the music begins.